Hello and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur TV. And it's a good one today because do you have a furry friend at home? Do you have pets that you love? But could you be doing maybe a little bit better for them with what you give them? Today, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Vince the vet. Vince, thank you very much first off for popping in because, I know it's a bit of a journey, but you are a mind of information when it comes to animals.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Now, I know that you're in the supplement world now, but I want to talk about Vince the vet years ago when you qualified as a vet. What was your passion behind it?
Well, it actually started when I was about 5 or 6. We lived in a newsagent's in Liverpool at the time, and we had lots of animals. We had a lovely German Shepherd called Major who guarded the shop. We also had Tina, who's a little tortoiseshell and white cat who was the mouser. She was chief in charge of keeping the front of the shop from being, vermin free. And one day, she jumped up on a top shelf in the room between the shop and the back room and knocked off a bottle of disinfectant. It was a thick black disinfectant, well-known brand at the time. But she landed in the disinfectant and it covered her all over. Before we could grab her to wash her and get the disinfectant off, she disappeared off out of the front door. We went out looking for her. Mum and Dad searched everywhere, but we couldn't find her. She came back about 4 or 5 days later, pretty much clean, still smelling of the disinfectant. It was a phenolic compound that was in the product. She'd swallowed all that disinfectant and it had destroyed her kidneys, basically. So she was dying of kidney failure. My mum and dad took her to the vets and gosh, I can still remember it now, even though it was 60 years ago. They took her to the vets and they couldn't do anything because the kidneys had gone beyond the point of repair. So they brought her back to pass us home. And my memory is of holding a little mirror in front of Tina's nose, in front of the fire in the living room, just looking for that misting of her breath on the glass to show that she was still alive. And at the moment that stopped, it absolutely broke my heart. And it's like we're looking at it on TV now. I could see the tears streaming down the front of my face. Yeah. And what it left me with was a not only grief, which was absolutely heartbreaking because it was the first time I'd lost a living creature that I'd been very close to. But it also left me with a feeling of helplessness, that I couldn't do anything to help Tina. And that was a seed that was planted at that point. I mean, I loved the animals around. We had greyhounds, we had the shepherd, we had goldfish in the pond, we had Tina, of course, up until that point. So I always had a love of animals, but the feeling, that loss stayed with me, and that was the seed that spurred me on to be in a position to help other pets, other animals who might find themselves in that position, and that's where the desire to become a vet began. So
obviously you would have done all your qualifications and all your studies and everything, and then you obviously went into veterinary practice.
Yes, I was very lucky. I managed to get the grades required to get to veterinary college, went to Liverpool University, qualified as a veterinary surgeon, BVSC, MRCVS in 1983. And then it was out into the big bright world to start to put into practice what I'd learned at college. But always, whenever you get a degree in anything or any qualification, it's really only the start of your journey. You've got the basics and the knowledge, but what comes next is what really develops you as a professional. So for me, most of the fellows, ladies and gents in the course in the same year went on into private practice. But I didn't want to be constrained by the limits. This is a recurring theme, actually. I hate limits. I hate restrictions, limitations. and I didn't want to go into private practice. And nothing against private practice, you know, they're set up along their lines of helping pets the way they're designed according to the practice principle. But I wanted more than that. I wanted the freedom to have the pets in front of me in whatever way I saw would benefit them the most, but without being told what I couldn't do, and how much the customer, the pet parent, could afford to spend on their pets, because a lot of people can't, you know, particularly in some areas, just can't afford to spend the extraordinary large, shall I say, fees that particularly are being charged these days. So I went and joined the PDSA in Manchester, and it was a wonderful time for me. For 3 years, I learned such a lot from the veterinary surgeons that were qualified there, and I wasn't restrained in what I could do. So, you know, if a pet came in with a broken leg or multiple fractures, I could repair that without having to ask the pet parent for £400 or £500 at that point. You know, we could treat medically in the ways that was best for that pet, rather than saying, oh, well, if you can't afford this drug, you know, we can try this, but it might not necessarily have the same benefits. So that was a wonderful time for me, developing into the kind of vet I wanted to be.
And of course, I think that's then spurred you on, because obviously you've got a passion to do more than what just the vet does, you know, and you're looking at the whole holistic approach really in animals. And this is where Vince the vet, all the supplements and nutrition came in. You know, it's one thing sort of having that sort of comfortable job, isn't it? And then you're starting this venture on your own. Just before that, did you actually see then the need for this holistic approach of nutrition for animals?
Well, funnily enough, I've always had a kind of a curious mind. I've always liked to delve into all kinds of things, really. I mean, my mum used to say, you know, you want to know the ins and outs of the ducks behind. And it was true, you know, right from being in my early teens, I wanted to know more about the world. So my mum bought me a microscope, so I was cutting things up, you know, plants and various bits of inorganic matter that I found, staining them and looking at them, you know, from kind of 11, 12 onwards, and kind of developed like that. And even as a training as a veterinary surgeon, I was studying acupuncture, you know, from the various texts that were around at the time. And even saw practice at vets who were similarly minded, you know, who were kind of pioneers in their own right. So the gentleman I'm speaking about now are dead, but there was a John Nichol in Guildford who introduced acupuncture into the animal world in his clinic in Guildford. And I went to see practice with him for a few weeks. I also went up to see Norman Chandler in Northumberland, and he dealt with a lot of race horses. And he was pioneering work on how to get tendon injuries to heal, which was particularly problematical at the time, because a severe tendon injury could end the racehorse's career. You know, and these are very, very highly priced,
very
animals.
Expensive creatures.
So seeing vets who were already qualified embarking on a journey to push the boundaries and look for solutions to problems which weren't being addressed successfully in other ways, that kind of spurred me on when I qualified as a vet to think, you know, what else I could do.
What could you do?
So I set up my own practice, which I think was in January 87. And I continued to work as a conventional veterinary surgeon until about the mid-1990s. But then, like all this old exploration and curiosity and desire to do better came back when I realised that a lot of veterinary medicine is about prescribing a relatively small number of drugs, you know, anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, painkillers, and then a few others, antiemetics and that and the other. And then you've got the surgery side. But in a lot of the most common diseases in pets, particularly like chronic skin disease, which has been top of the hit list since I qualified over 40 years ago now, the number of pets needing help with itchy skins, for example, and the treatment range is still relatively small, you know, so suppressing the immune system to stop the scratch, which is highly effective with steroids and various other drugs, which Pet parents out there will know, but I won't mention, but have dreadful side effects over the years, even to the point of inducing cancer of various kinds and all kinds of autoimmune diseases and various other things. So I got to the point where I thought, there must be a better way than this, of prescribing just these relatively small number of drugs for cancer, for skin problems, for arthritis, etc., etc. There must be a way that the body can be stimulated to heal itself, because it's a body that creates all healing. It's not the drugs. All these things are ways of triggering an innate capacity within the body to heal itself. But like any lock, you have to have the right key to open that lock.
Exactly.
So that started an exploration of the various different teaching modalities around the world. So I've travelled the world, to America, to India, to Sri Lanka, to China, and studying Ayurvedic medicine, for example, and traditional Chinese medicine, and acupuncture and herbology, and various others. And that then I thought, okay, coming back, and I decided then to start introducing holistic therapies, predominantly nutrition based, but also acupuncture, into the practice for the cases that nothing else was helping.
Now, were people like a little bit sort of skeptical, do you think? Because they're so used to it. I work in the food world and I'm always on about food, health, nutrition. And I think the thing is that, I can give people advice on, have you tried this herb? Have you tried this? And whatever, more natural products. And they sort of just seem to want the quick pill fix because that's easier than solving the underlying problem. Are people like sometimes a little bit skeptical until you actually show them the results of other people's success?
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm completely skeptical. If somebody tells me about something that works, I don't believe it straight away. I always put things to the test because the only proof is the proof of the pudding is the end result, not what people say, not what people say might work. It's the change in health in that animal or that person taking something, and that for me is the ultimate test, and so I'm naturally skeptical, but having studied these different kind of methodologies, these different healing systems, I had to acknowledge that these go back thousands of years.
Yes, they do.
Chinese medicine is 4,000 plus years old.
Even Hippocrates,
Ayurvedic medicine, exactly. No, these haven't stood the test of time because there's nothing in them. They would have been found out, dismissed a long time ago. So what I did do, is I offered alternatives to pet parents whose pets were suffering from some kind of chronic disease, and nothing else was helping.
Yes.
Either that or the treatment was worse almost than the condition itself.
Yeah.
You're giving steroids and the dog starts to drink excessively and urinate in the house and the skin starts to go thin and the hair comes out, and then he develops something called Cushing's syndrome, which is a scenario where, the body is kind of breaking down essentially because of overuse of steroids, particularly at high doses. So there was everything to gain and nothing to lose if what was being offered didn't work.
And that's the thing as well. Do you find that, because I find it that when I suggest something to somebody, have you tried this, that and the other, they'll come back a week later, no, it didn't work. These things, sometimes the body, it takes months, doesn't it, to really get in, to actually deal with the underlying issues. Is that the same then for dogs and cats and everything else you treat?
It can. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the condition present. It depends on how long it's been present and how advanced any particular pathology might be. If it's fairly recent, there's no severe changes in the body and how it's working, then the results can actually be very quick. One of the first dogs that I treated was a little dog, a West Highland White Terrier called Yushi, that had chronic skin problems for years before the lady Jenny heard of us. And she got in touch. She'd actually gone, interesting enough, via the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, who don't really believe in much of this, and aren't particularly supportive of it, shall we say, to say lightly. But somehow she'd managed to get through to somebody at the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons who knew that I had an interest in and qualifications in some natural therapies. So Jenny got in touch. This little doggy came along. It was a complete and utter mess, you know. And she'd had every treatment, you know, available to modern medicine, all the drugs, the steroids, various other things. And the previous practice had recommended that you should be put to sleep because there was nothing else they could do.
Oh.
Jenny was absolutely distraught and thought there must be something. So Yusha came along and didn't promise a great deal. I said, look, you know, we'll try our best. You know, first thing we need to do is get this body nourished, you know, because it wasn't on a completely healthy, fresh food balanced diet. So that was the first thing we did. And then the second thing, we started to give some natural remedies to start to stimulate healing, but also to help almost like reprogram the immune system. Because the immune system in itchy dogs very largely is due to the fact that it perceives normal substances in the environment as a threat in the same way it would see a virus or a bacteria or a toxin.
Yeah.
So it mounts an immune response. Very often these things are innocuous, but it's behaving as though it's completely under threat and has to eradicate whatever this substance is at all costs, and it creates all this inflammation and itching and swelling, you know, as a byproduct of that. It's programmed in genetically, but that doesn't mean to say it's cast iron and can't be
reversed,
moulded or encouraged or nudged
to
go along a different route. So we were using natural remedies to help support the development of a more balanced and less reactive immune system. So again, we're going back to the body itself. The body's creating all these problems. So let's help the body, you know, reset, if you like, to a lower level of reactivity. So that's what we did. Now, it wasn't an instant thing, but within 6 to 9 months, that dog's skin was perfect.
Transformed. Oh.
There was no itching. There was no inflammation. The dog was on a much healthier, balanced, fresh food diet. This is really important.
Yes, I was about to come on to that because, you know, how important is diet and food for healthy animals in general?
It's exceptionally important. I mean, diet can either be part of the problem or part of the solution. You know, at a very basic level, you know, you can't build a house without bricks. The body can't build, you know, all the tissues and organs and cells without having the right nutrients in the diet. If they're not there, it can't create these parts of the different body. And it also can't function properly because all the facilitators of how the body works, you know, enzymes, hormones, for example, they will be lacking, and so it can't work the way it should. So you can build a house, for example, with the right bricks, but you need the builders to maintain it and to put it up in the first place. Otherwise, it's just a pile of bricks in a heap. So you need to be simulating the body's internal adaptive and recuperative and repair and regenerative mechanisms, the little builders of the body. So it's these two elements which need to be supported for any pet or person to achieve optimum health and well-being.
I mean, you only have to see on some of the dog foods, I mean, some of the ingredients in there, what are they doing? Why are they putting it in? It's all fillers, isn't it?
A good rule of thumb is if you read a label and there's lots of names there you can't pronounce, you know, long chemical names, you know, with copper in and magnesium in and various other, then they're all synthetic chemical additives created in a factory, much like fertilizer is, and then it's added as a mix to whatever else is being used in that particular food recipe. And the more of those there are, the less healthier it is. It's the same thing that's going on at the moment with the debate about ultra processed food in humans, you know. The more of these artificial kind of lifeless ingredients are in there, the less nutritious and less healthy that food is, and the less able it is to promote optimum health and well-being, you know. And in that, I not only include physical health, but mental and emotional health, and a good mood and good behaviour, all of which can be affected by inappropriate, highly processed food. Much better going down, looking for high quality foods, by which I mean there's a high proportion of fresh meat in there.
Yes.
So some of the meat recipes can have as little as 5%.
I know, it's absolutely...
Meat derivatives, not even meat, just derivatives, to be able to call themselves beef.
I've even seen one, and I was quite shocked. There's now vegan and vegetarian, but I don't know whether I'm with that, to be honest with you.
My approach to that is that dogs and cats' bodies have evolved over millions of years of evolution to process certain types of foods in the food chain, predominantly meat, smaller and a lesser amount of fat, and very small amounts of fruit and veg, if any. Now, you don't design a Ferrari to run on the highest octane food and then put diesel in it or pork. It simply won't run the way it's meant to run, and it certainly won't run at peak performance. And I believe the same of dogs and cats' bodies. Evolution spent a long time refining, what that body runs on to achieve the best of health. So I think putting anything other than that in, you're going to create problems. If not immediately, at some point further down the line. So that's why we say if you can manage to feed a home-cooked meat diet or raw diet, and then add in carefully selected supplements, which provide nutrients, not just the building blocks for a body, but nutrients which are not present normally in the food chain. These are, if you like, health enhancers. This is a different category of nutrients. Then that is the best way of making sure that your pet lives the healthiest, happiest, and longest possible life, given their genetic predisposition and circumstances.
It's funny because I've even had this with my own dog. He's a very fussy Patterdale Terrier, and he suddenly realised that he preferred Mum's home-cooked food to anything else.
Good job.
And I do remember him going to the vet not so long back, and she said, I think he has put a little bit of weight on. And I said, he's 14. I said, and how often has he been in your vet surgery for any treatment apart from his annual injections? Oh, never. Thank you very much. I think it sort of speaks for itself. But the other thing as well, they were trying to force on me various supplements. And I'm afraid I'm a bit like you, because just like with humans, I look at what's in supplements. And when I see things in there and the quality of the ingredients was poor. So this is where now your supplements are like on an A game, aren't they?
You're absolutely right. I mean, supplements is a catch-all for anything that's in a tub that somebody's put a label on saying, for pets. It's exactly the same as qualities of food. You can have really poor quality, highly processed food, or you can have high quality, easy to digest, nutritious, fresh foods. Same for animals, same for people. So to call supplements as one as just it's one category. There's an enormous variation, and you can get supplements that are dreadful, that are full of chemicals, and literally that's all they are. And fillers. I mean, lots of supplements, for example, have chalky.
I know.
Calcium carbonate as a filler.
Yeah.
They have lots of chemical additives like magnesium stearate. And the only reason saying magnesium stearate is in there is because it's a chemical lubricant to stop the machines in the factory from clogging up. So it's not there for the benefit of the animal, it's there for the benefit of the manufacturer. Silica, silica is basically a form of sand. That's in a lot of supplements. You've also got microcrystalline cellulose, which is a form of wood pulp.
Wood. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways of making supplements which might appear very cheap, but very suspect in terms of the quality they deliver. But where we're coming from, which is very different, is ours are clinically formulated. They're formulated with an end result in terms of health improvement, and every ingredient is only there because it contributes to that greater vitality, healthier coat, easier moving joints, improvement in mood and health, reduction in excessive or overly excessive anxiety and apprehension and fear and sensitivity to sound, topical at the moment, sensitivity to thunder and fireworks, which scaring the life out of so many. But you can formulate supplements made from botanical extracts or whole foods, which help the body cope with the demands of environmental challenges like excess noise, for example. So there's a central thrust. We never set out to create a company to market supplements. I set out to create supplements going back to the mid-1990s now to help the pet in front of me in a way that wasn't being helped any other way. Now, we had to do this by trial and error because we used initially the human herbology books, like Culpepper's, for example, and the traditional Chinese medicine books, because all that's based on responses in people, not animals. So I was finding that we were introducing certain herbs and botanicals, whole foods, into a pet's diet, and it really wasn't achieving the effect. It might only help, say, 1 in 10, which is not acceptable from my point of view when that pet needs help. And also, I can't charge pet parents for something which really, personally, I don't want to charge for something that's really not making a difference. So we had to kind of refine these. And over the years, instead of helping 1 out of 10, it became 4 out of 10, became 6 out of 10. And now the supplements help well over 80 to 90% of the pets that receive them in one way or another. But that predictability, that increased probability and assurance that we know we're on the right track, we're doing the right thing by the animals and by ourselves, is because of that trial and error and the proof of the pudding. If that pet gets better, there's no denying. And you don't need to tell a pet parent that a supplement is doing any good. They can see it.
They can see it in their animal.
Yeah. I mean, the number of pet parents who, for example, use our joint supplements, who write back and say, he's behaving like a puppy again. He's going upstairs. He's not done that for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, So they don't need to be told. And we don't need to be told if a supplement's working because we feel it.
We feel it eventually, don't we?
And that is the ultimate. And that really is what separates us out from everybody else, is because, my clinical experience, over 40 odd years, and the fact that these are targeted nutritional supplements for specific areas of health.
Now, I've got a little list here because I think it's important that I give people the list, a breakdown of some of the things that you can help with. We've mentioned for anxiety and behaviour, bladder health, complete remedy range, detoxification, fireworks, heart health, the injections, itching, joint health, kidney health, liver health, natural worm control, recuperation, obviously when they've had surgery, stomach and bowel health, thunder, travel and motion sensitivity, and veterinary procedures. Yes. I think Max at the end there, I know my husband sat over there, he utterly hates the vets. I don't think he wants to ever go, but there are some dogs that have to have obviously regular treatments, and so to even just help them on that emotional journey, it must be very rewarding what you do.
Oh, it is. And we do make a very clear distinction. We're not advising people don't seek veterinary treatment. We don't advise that people ignore what the vets say about the drugs they should have, and what they should be doing in terms of surgery or lifestyle or anything like that. That's really important. But a very neglected side of modern veterinary medicine is that they don't look at the value that nutrition plays in keeping and enhancing health. And very often changes in diet, the addition of natural supplements, which there's no drawback, there's no risk involved, and very often it can bring about an improvement in quality of life that means that in certain circumstances, medication is not necessary. And I'm a great believer in, save the drugs for when they're really needed. If they are needed for extreme pain or for a severe infection, then by all means give them.
Yes.
But if there are steps that can be taken prior to that, or even prevent that from arising, why not do that? and reserve, the big guns for when they are needed, because they all have side effects. Every single
do.
drug, there's no drug that exists that doesn't have a side effect of one sort or another. And the deceptive thing is, it may not always be apparent at the time. So you give antibiotics and infection clears up, great. The pet's benefited from that. That's fine, but that could damage the gut microbiome for life.
And then that's, of course, their immune system health. So they end up getting more and more and more different things. And then before you know it, you've got a real problem on your hands.
Yeah. So what we would say, for example, if a dog has a course of antibiotics for something, and it can only say, well, in humans, there is research which shows that the gut microbiome, which is really important for digestion and the immune system and mood and behaviour and the gut-brain axis, one course can disrupt that for the rest of the person's life. So what we say is, okay, if a pet's had that, the next step then is to try and restore that gut microbiome to a healthy state as quickly as possible. So by giving certain prebiotics, which we recommend, giving the probiotic digestion that we've produced, etc. So it's about pet parents having options, and also pet parents being proactive.
Exactly.
and this is about awareness. For us, the philosophy of what we do is giving pet parents the awareness to make good decisions, whatever that decision is. They might decide to go down conventional or otherwise. But we see a really important part of our role, which again is distinct from what other companies are doing. We're not a supplement company. We're here to empower pet parents to make well-informed choices that they feel comfortable with.
And that's lovely, because even on your website and that, there's so much information there for people, and they can have consultations with you and everything. So if they are a bit concerned, they can get in touch. And that's like, you're accessible. Some of these other companies that do the supplements, I can't get in touch with them and ask for their help and, advice. You just get a little bit of a paragraph on the back of a box. So you really are making it very different for pet parents.
We put a lot of information out. General advice we give free of charge, So if people want to know if there are a particular supplement or two that will positively influence their pet's quality of life, we're happy to give that free of charge, either via the live chat or the emails. We always try to respond to emails within 48 hours. There are consultations for complex cases. People come to us when dogs have cancer or chronic skin issues, that things are a bit more involved, than just itching. So there is that. But we give a lot of free advice and encouragement, and again, we kind of have an educational role to play, I think, in what we do as well.
Well, I can safely say that people are going to be probably blown away by this information, because the thing is that we're told one thing by the vet, and which is okay, like you said, but then there is this other way. So I think people are going to be really, really interested to explore more about your products, Vince, because, as I said, that list is a long one. that list is a long one, and there's a lot there for people to find out if their pet has a certain issue. So it's going to be really good. Now, we can't end without having some fun questions, Vince. I am so sorry, but I'm going to have to put you through this. If you could be any animal for a day, what would you be?
It's a difficult one, really. I'm torn between an elephant and a lion. I like the idea of being king of the jungle. That's very appealing.
Yeah,
of course, an elephant has, are extraordinarily intelligent creatures, phenomenal strength, but very gentle with it. I don't know.
Elephant.
I'll go with the elephant.
I think we'll go for the elephant, I'd be a horse, because they're my favourite animals. So. Horses and donkeys. What's the most funniest or memorable moment you've had with a patient? Is it repeatable, Vince?
No, probably not. I'm trying to think one that's reasonably okay. The most unusual request we had once was a guy wanted to go fishing in Iceland, and he couldn't go and take all his equipment with him. without having it thoroughly disinfected and certified by a vet. So this gentleman brought in all his fishing equipment, fishing rods, baskets, and all the rest of it. Left it with us for the day, and we had to spray everything. And then at the end of it, sign a certificate to say it'd been thoroughly done. And he trotted off to Iceland to do his fishing. So that was the most unusual one.
Which animal do you think is secretly the smartest that people probably don't realise?
Smartest.
I know my Max is, because if he tries to get near a vet, he's working out how he can get away from them faster than what I can.
I think it'd probably have to be one of the cat family.
Yeah, they are quite...
Yeah, it's like a cheetah or a panther. Cats are extraordinarily intelligent.
Yes.
Much smarter than dogs. Now, hope I'm not upsetting the dog pet parent population out there, because I mean, I've had dogs as well, you know. And if you had a boxer, I had a boxer called Billy the Boxer, who he was the party piece, you know. My partner at the time used to take him dog training, and you know, you're the recall you're supposed to do in obedience training classes. He'd sit there, and you're supposed to sit there for 3 minutes, and if he gets like 1 minute, and he'd be going. The eyes were supposed to be on the handler, you know, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and then about 2.5 minutes before he completed his task, he'd wander off and piddle on the post in the corner. Everybody would be absolutely an uproar. You know, so he was like the comedy act, you know, and so it was great fun, but not top drawer in terms of, you know, it wasn't Einstein level, you know, whereas, see, I think most cats secretly...
They know when their bread's buttered, really, don't they?
You know, the intelligence there, watching and taking everything in. So, yeah, I'd go with one of the big cats.
And is there any animal that sort of like would, you know, maybe want treatment that you'd be like, oh, now this one's scaring me a bit, or you just don't have fear of anything?
I'd be a bit wary of a tarantula.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, people do have pet tarantulas these days, and only because not because of the sensation, but when they get frightened, they can fire out all these little spikes, which then become embedded, you know, like a mist, so they can become embedded in the skin, and which is why you should never have one near your face. So I would be a little bit.
My husband would love that, wouldn't you? You would love a little pet tarantula. I know what I'll get him for Christmas. Well, Vince, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Well, thanks
I could actually talk to you for hours and hours. You're totally fascinating, and I'm sure there's so many stories that you could, you know, tell me of everything that's happened.
Just before, I'll just leave you on this little note. Again, you know, proof of the pudding. Some of the feedback that we've had is actually from pet parents who take the supplements as well. You know, we can't ask the pets what we can see how they're changing. But for example, we have a lady who has had severe back pain for, I think it's about 15, 20 years. She had to have surgery at the base of her spine to have the coccyx removed, and has been in unbearable pain ever since. Nothing's worked. And she started taking one of our supplements, which we launched last year. And, you know, within a month, natural supplement, plant-derived, no pain whatsoever, and she's staying pain-free ever since. Now, when you get that kind of feedback from, and this is a plant extract that's doing that. That it kind of takes you over and beyond, you know, that any degree of skepticism when you have those kind of results coming back.
That's amazing. And it's like, because they are food human grade, aren't they? So
all human food. They're actually intended for the human market, but we just hijacked them because we think pets deserve the best.
Exactly. Your pets deserve the best. Now then, if you are intrigued to find out more, if you would like to have a look at these supplements, see some of the amazing work that Vince has done, his website is fantastic. You will find out so much information on all the supplements, all the treatments, all the products, and more. You will find all the details. Just go down below to the bio and you will find it there. But do check it out because it's so interesting. Even if you don't have a pet, it's still really interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for popping in, Vince. And come back again, because I think we've got more stories to tell, which I think will be great for the future.
Absolutely. Thanks very much.